What is up, my veggies? My name is VTR, and yes, we are finally going to be doing my top 12 movies of 2019. Yes, I was going to do this actually before it became 2020. I started filming it, but I never finished, so I'm redoing it. And it also kind of helps because I saw a few more movies, but I don't know if I'm going to change those or not at this point. But I have the majority of the list figured out. When I made the initial list of the top 12, there were 2 movies that I haven't seen that I've gone and seen at this point, and really want to include them on a list somewhere. And I might try to include them. I don't know, but let's just go ahead and get into number 12. Number 12. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. Yes, I have not even done a review for this on my channel yet, because I was going to wait to review the first 2, but I still haven't got around to reviewing any of them. I'm lazy. But let's talk a little bit about this movie real quick. This is a good way to wrap up this franchise. It was a great conclusion to the film trilogy. I consider myself a die-hard How to Train Your Dragon fan. I can't say that I was, even though I really do enjoy the franchise. I've watched a little bit of the series that was on Cartoon Network, and I've watched a big chunk of the series that is on Netflix, and I have seen pretty much I think all of the short special ones that are at least around 20 minutes long, except for the newest one that came out after this movie. So if you want to be specific, technically that is the end of this franchise, that holiday short that came out recently, or special, whatever. Back to what I was saying. This movie is a great way to wrap up the films. It feels like a conclusion. It feels great. And the movie is done in such a great way to you where you just want to, that you've been there with these characters this whole time and you're seeing them grow, and actually there's a bunch of good character development in this movie. There's stuff that I wanted to see in the second one that I got to see in this one, which was a lot of just really good stuff. So let's go on over to number 11. Number 11. Us. This was probably one of the biggest shocks of this year for me. I did not see this in theaters, which I really wish I did, because I probably would have had nightmares. But I digress. This movie did so much, which actually legit made me uncomfortable in a good way, like a horror movie should. Which a lot of horror movies nowadays don't give me that feeling anymore. Like, yeah, I'll get scared or a jump scare or something like that, but they don't really make me uncomfortable. In a good way. And this one did that. This movie did that. And I'm happy, to say the least, that this did that, because I loved this movie. I really wish I would have saw it in theaters. And it even has a message in this, which is surprising for a horror movie, and actually really interesting. I enjoyed this much more than Get Out. Yes, I did not like Get Out. Yeah, yell at me all you want. I did not like Get Out. But this was so much better than Get Out. And a lot of people tell me, why didn't you like Get Out? I was like, Get Out was boring. But this movie did so much with this concept that really was like, what? And I still had so many questions after the credits rolled. I was like, It was such a great horror movie. It was such a surprise for me. It's definitely one of my favorite horror movies of the year. Now let's go on over to number 10. Number 10, Aladdin. Now this is a little controversial with people. Some people, you either really liked this movie or you really hated it. I loved it. And I loved it. It was great. I walked out of that movie so satisfied. Like, legit, I bought the movie. It was a 4K version that I bought, and then it got stolen, so you know why people like the movie, because they stole it. So I had to buy another copy on his normal Blu-ray. It was alright. It was fine. I'm not being petty. But no, this movie is so good, and I've been watching too much Shane Dawson. Sorry, off topic. I've watched too much Shane Dawson and Garrett Watts. I've been watching way too much of them lately. I need to stop. Okay, back to this. Okay, but no, Aladdin was such a good movie that came out this year. Like, I legit loved it. It was really hard to put it only at number 10. I was like, oh, when I saw this in the theater and I walked out, I was like, this is going to be in the top 5 at least. Boy, was I wrong. But not that this movie isn't good. It's just like, it was really hard to figure out where to put this on the list. And with all the movies that I saw this year, I felt like 10 was the best place to put it. And the criticisms that this movie got, I'm not going to go into full-on detail because I did do a full review of this movie on my channel already. But the thing is, the actors in this did amazing. Will Smith brings his own take to the genie. He's not replacing Robin Williams. He's not trying to replace Robin Williams or anything like that. So that's a good thing. Sorry, I'm messing with the computer right here. Sorry. It's just really insane, some of the stuff they did in this movie that made me, like, I'm shook. I don't ever say shook. What the heck is wrong with me? I really need to stop watching Shane Dawson. But no, the movie was really well executed, and I had a lot of fun with it. The musical numbers, it was great seeing these musical numbers on the big screen, because I've seen the original countless times before. I love the original movie, but like I know I'm probably never going to get to see them on the big screen, and seeing these songs on the big screen was fantastic for me. And just the CGI is pretty darn good. It's a little strange here, in the editing for this movie is a little off at points, but for the most part, it's a pretty darn good movie. Now, let's go on over to number 9. Number 9, The Lego Movie 2, the second part. First things first, I don't love that title. Why do you need the second part there? Is it supposed to be like a part, like a Lego brick or something? It makes no sense. It makes no sense, because you should just call it The Lego Movie 2. There's no point of it being called the second part. I legit don't understand this. I don't understand why it had to be called the second part. But I digress. This is definitely one of my favorite animated movies of the year, because the fact that I loved the Lego Movie 2 so much, the Lego Movie so much, and then we had the Lego Batman movie, which I kind of liked a little bit more than the Lego Movie, I cannot lie. And then we had the Rocky one that was the Lego Ninjago movie, and then this brings it back. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I really need to stop watching Shane Dawson. But my mind is blanking so much. Lego Movie 2, if you're looking for great animation, just like in the last movie, you're going to get that, because the animation is great once again. The characters are great. The new characters that I get introduced are pretty enjoyable. This one's actually a musical this go around, because you know how I love me some musicals, and it's great. There's not like that many musical numbers in this, but it's like, for the ones we have, it's a lot of fun, and I love them, and I bought all of them on my phone, on iTunes. The animation is so great, the sounds is so great, the characters, they really found out a way to basically just write 3 characters out of the movie. They basically wrote Morgan Freeman out of the movie and wrote Bad Cop out of the movie, because I'm guessing they maybe couldn't afford to have their voice actors again, I guess. I forgot. I said Morgan Freeman. I meant Vitruvius. I forgot his name for a minute. They wrote them out, and they kind of write out Lord Business, or President Business. He's in it, and he talks. Don't get me wrong, so are the other 2. They just get knocked to the side, basically. Vitruvius literally getting knocked to the side. But the movie is done, and there's a twist in here I was not expecting. Wasn't so sure how I felt about it. Really not big. I'm big on that whole twist either. But there's tons of references in this one. Maybe even more than there were in the first one. Maybe. But just the fact we get to see all these characters return again. It's Batman's third go round. It's Emmett's second go around and everything, and it's. So technically, if you want to be technical, there is like a little bit of an Emmett cameo in the Lego movie, the Lego Batman movie. So technically, the movie this is his third go around as well. Whatever, I don't know. But the thing is, this movie's done really great. Now it's not the best animated movie of the year, which I was thinking it was gonna be, just because of the first one. This movie did flop. It did flop financially in theaters. And that's probably why that Warner Brothers doesn't have the rights to the Lego movies anymore. Yeah, they're over with Universal now. Yay. That might be a good thing. But, yeah, that's all I've got to say on that movie. It was good. Let's move on. This little part was all over the place. Let's move on to number 8. Number 8, It, Chapter 2, which is a mixed bag of a movie. Don't get me wrong, I loved this movie. I can't say I loved it. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I can't say it was bad, because it wasn't. It just didn't have the same punch that the first movie had. But I still had a lot of fun with this. And I'm going to get to the horror elements in a minute. But the comedy was great. That was a big part of the first one as well, and this one just continued that. And the casting was fantastic. Everyone felt like they matched their characters. Even Ben, I may have said something different in the past, I don't remember. But after owning the movie and watching it quite a few times since then, yeah, the casting there is still perfect. And just the fact that the movie just is so fun to watch. And when you get to the actual horror elements, I feel the same way about this one that I felt about the first one. It doesn't terrify me. Like, there was a few moments, but like, I was not, it wasn't Us. But for some reason, I did enjoy this. This was more anticipated for me than Us was, because Us wasn't even on my radar, and I just rented that, and this was on my radar ever since the first movie came out, and it was really enjoyable to see what they did with these characters, and the way they added their own little spin on things, and knowing stuff that was in the books that were in this movie that I didn't know were in the book before, which really interested me, and just, there were a few things I had a problem with, like some things that didn't work in the context they were in, since the movie takes place in 2016, instead of, I think, the 80s is in the original where it takes place, so it really doesn't, some things don't work in the context, but I'm not going to worry about that. But it was still really enjoyable, and I had so much fun with it, and I walked out of it satisfied, and I loved the big part at the end. I was upset when characters kaputted and everything, and it's just like, and they gave a reason for a character's death that in the original miniseries it didn't make sense, but they gave a more reason for it, and I like that. If you've seen the movie and the miniseries, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But let's go ahead and get on to number 7. Number 7, Child's Play. Now, I was both worried about this movie and excited for it. Because the fact of me being a longtime Child's Play fan, the thought of them rebooting it was kind of a bad idea. But at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm open to this. The fact that it was going to be a technologically advanced doll that got tampered with. Didn't get tampered with in the way I thought it was going to in the actual movie. Things didn't go the way I was expecting. But overall, I enjoyed the things that this film did. I cannot lie. And it doesn't replace the original for me, obviously not, but it's definitely one of the best ones in the Child's Play franchise, even though this is separated, and I doubt you'll find this one in a box set with all the rest of them. You might, I don't know. But with this being a lot of people with remakes and stuff, they get bad rep. And that's true. A lot of times remakes aren't that good, especially when it comes to the horror franchises. A Nightmare on Elm Street remake is, from what I know, I actually have never sat down and watched it, absolutely terrible. And a lot of people have a problem with the Friday the 13th remake. I don't remember it being that bad, but with the thing that is done with this movie and the animatronic work and just the way Chucky's design looks pretty different. And yes, I can agree that the doll looks pretty darn ugly at some points. But you also got to give it props when this thing is voiced by Mark freaking Hamill. You cannot complain when your this movie has a killer doll voiced by Mark Hamill. And like, it's not really just being a killer doll, it's kind of an overprotective best friend as well. And it's like a child that is very impressionable, which is really interesting. And like, sometimes, in some point in this movie when Chucky is sad, you feel bad for Chucky. Yes, I know that sounds weird, but yeah, it's true. And I didn't think it was like, oh, Chucky. I wasn't expecting to do that. But then later on, he does some really bad things. I'm like, I'm glad we're trying to stop you. Because I think I have problems. But no, this movie was great. The kills were fantastic. Wow. Maybe I'm a sociopath. No, just joking. But like the horror fan, your horror movie gotta have good kills. And they had pretty good kills. Well, I wouldn't say they were they're pretty unique, and the effects didn't look bad, really. Some of the actors are great. Andy's mom and Andy felt more like a brother-sister thing from what I have heard, and people have said that to me, and I'm like, yeah, I see how you can see that. But besides that, the movie's done with a good amount of great things, and there's no reason to get upset over this being a remake unless you're really one of those people that are like, oh, Don Mancini was against it, so I'm against it too. That is... So, me personally, I don't see it that way because I really enjoyed the movie. And let's move on to number 6. Number 6, Avengers Endgame. Yes, why is this ranked at number 6 and not like at number 3 or number 2 or even number 1? Because I don't know. I love this movie. I own the movie, and I've seen it countless times since theaters. Saw it twice in theaters, saw it at least 5 times since I've owned it. Which honestly isn't a lot compared to how much I've watched other movies. But this movie is such a good love letter to Marvel in general, especially the big battle scene. And is it too late to give spoilers for Endgame? No. Yes. No. It's not. I mean, is it too? Is it? We've waited long enough. I can give spoilers. The thing is, this movie really built up some stuff that could, for the next stage of Marvel movies. That is what's going to be in the next part of the MCU. And the fact that how they get rid of Thanos so early in the movie, but he's still a threat, and later on in the movie, it makes Thanos still the villain of the Infinity Endgame movies, all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's really, really interesting to see stuff like that be done. And the fact that you get to see every Marvel character that's still alive up to this point in this movie, it's insane that you get to see all of them on the big screen here again. And some people have tried to tell me there are Easter eggs in that battle scene. I haven't been able to find any of them, like, to other characters and stuff, but I'm not going to get into all that. It's currently like almost 7 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't sleep. Yeah. But yeah, so the movie was really great, and it's the highest grossing movie of all time now. So that's a big deal that's a thing, and the fact that the Marvel movies have become so big nowadays that freaking people are trying to imitate them. Freaking DC was so desperate trying to catch up. They're learning from that mistake, but still, this movie is it set the groundwork for so much stuff in the future, for the upcoming Disney Plus series, for the upcoming movies, and just everything that's planned for the MCU. It's insane, and I don't really know what else to say. What am I doing? Why am I gesturing like that? I'm like pressing my arm against my chest and gesturing. What is wrong with me? But it was a great love letter to everyone who's stuck with the MCU for this long. And it's insane to see that this all started with Iron Man, right? Yeah, this all started back with Iron Man, which is insane. But let's go on and talk about number 5. Number 5, Toy Story 4. Now, this is a movie that did not need to exist, had no right to exist. No one needed it. We did not want it. The series is concluded perfectly. But we all loved it. Don't lie. We all loved Toy Story 4. I bought the dang movie. It was so good. And it deserves to be in the top 5 here. And it's just, the animation quality has improved so much from Toy Story 3. Not to say the animation from Toy Story 3 is not good, just to say it's been years since Toy Story 3. We got Toy Story 4, and it's a massive upgrade, which is really, really good. And the movie is done in bringing back an old character. It's so great, and I love what they've done with these new characters and everything. There are some characters that don't feel utilized as good as they could have been. But that's not a big deal for me. Like, it was alright. I was bothered by how, like, all the main toys were really shoved to the side. They weren't really big in the last movie either, but they were still big. If that makes sense. Like, they had roles and everything. They still felt like they're meant to be there. Here it's similar, but not as much as they feel necessary, because you barely ever hear any of these characters talk, and they're just there just because this is a Toy Story movie and you need all the characters there. Buzz feels pretty dumbed down from the last movie and last 2 movies, because Buzz was so smart in the last 2 movies, and he feels really dumbed down in this one. I don't know why. But this is Woody's movie. If you want to, these movies have always been Woody's movies. But this one, if any of them in this franchise is Woody's movie, this one is Woody focused. And a lot of the characters are really nice, and new characters are really nice, and the animation is just great. The soundtrack is fantastic. It feels like Toy Story, and I love Forky. Forky is so adorable. If you haven't gone and watched any of the Forky Asks a Question on Disney Plus, I'd highly recommend it. They're so entertaining, and it just I just loved what they did with this franchise, and it looks so freaking good. And a lot of things I was concerned going into it, like, oh my goodness, we don't need a Toy Story 4 because Toy Story 3 was such a good conclusion. And even though technically Toy Story 4 wasn't really the conclusion, because we got the shorts afterwards, and we still got the 2 23-minute specials, or however long they were. But still, this is a lot of fun to actually just sit down and enjoy this movie, and I really enjoyed seeing it in theaters. And this is the second movie. This is one of the 2 movies we got this year that were about toys. One was about a murderous toy. One was about toys going on an adventure. Yeah, Hollywood's weird. But with that being said, let's go ahead and go on to number 4. Number 4, Spider-Man Far From Home, which is easily the best Marvel movie of the 3 we got this year. And it's because I love Spider-Man. Like, I just honestly love Spider-Man, and if you can't tell, I love Marvel. If you can't tell, I love Marvel. I love Marvel. But this movie really felt great. It was a great follow-up to not only Far From Home, Homecoming, also the good follow-up to Endgame, which you cannot see this movie without seeing Endgame, because this movie contains tons of spoilers of Endgame. Because as you guys know, Tony Stark kaput at the end of. I hate that the fact I got. See, I was all bubbly and everything at the start of this video and acting like Shane Dawson for some reason. And now I'm just tired and just want to get this video done. Like, it was dark when I started filming this, and the sun's up. Yeah. So with that being said, let's get back into talking about the movie. Honestly, the villain, it worked, and this is one reason why I really love not knowing much about the comics, because, yeah, I knew Mysterio was a villain, but the stuff they did with Mysterio I didn't expect, and I was like, wow, and I'm so glad I don't read the comics. So that's one thing that I didn't know who Mysterio was, and I loved seeing the relationship between MJ and everybody stop calling her Mary Jane. Her name is not Mary Jane. MJ does not stand for Mary Jane. I cannot stress that enough. Okay. So, that being said, the twist in this movie, I was like, wow, that's not that. It was so crazy to think about everything that was done in this movie, and just how exciting the movie felt, and how just action-packed the movie was, and just seeing Spider-Man do some things we've never seen Spider-Man do, and see him take some really strong hits in this movie, which is really cool. And there's also some very trippy stuff which we haven't seen in a Marvel movie since Doctor Strange. And it was like legit just a really entertaining movie, and felt really, really cool with everything that was done with it, and just the fact that we do get to see this story wrap up, because it's left off on a cliffhanger with another Spider-Man movie, and depending on what happens with Spider-Man and Sony and Disney and Marvel in the future, who just knows, it's going to be really, really cool to see what they do with Spider-Man in the future. So let's go ahead and move on to number 3. Number 3, Frozen 2. One of the best theatrically released animated movies of the year, because this movie was so good. I saw it twice, and hopefully if it doesn't get released and removed from theaters by next week, I will be going to see it 3 times. Because the movie was so great. I had so much hype leading up to this movie, because I loved the first movie. Sue Me, Let It Go is a good song. And this movie is just so freaking good. It's got great animation, great characters, great everything. Now, there are a few things that I didn't enjoy, but they're very minor. Now, I will not say this is better than the first one. The first one will still be better in my opinion. But the thing is, the songs are great. Their characters are great. Yeah, sure, Kristoff and Olaf feel a little underplayed, not as big as they were in the first one, but personally I didn't feel that like some of the people did. Maybe Kristoff a smidge, but still, every character had their moments in my opinion, and just the animation was so vastly improved from the first one, and it was such a greatly animated movie, and I'm so glad that they took their time with getting us this. They took 6 years to get us this movie, and I'm so glad they took their time with getting it, because if it would have came out when it was originally rumored to come out, it wouldn't have been as good, and with a bunch of plots that were predicted and everything, and that people thought was going to happen, wouldn't have been good plots in my opinion, and a lot of things that I was just over the moon about, and I thought was going to happen, things I was scared about happening, that didn't happen, was a relief, because I didn't want that to happen, and blah, blah, blah. But the movie was so good, and I really enjoyed every single minute of this movie. Like, there's not a dull moment with it. It's pretty much enjoyable all the way through. So, yeah, let's move on to number 2. Number 2 was really hard to pick. There were 2 movies that I saw in theaters recently that I wanted to put on this list, but I didn't see them within 2020, so I decided not to put those on here, even though I have done lists, the ones that were like for 2014 or some years later on that I made years later, whatever. You know what I mean. I guess I don't know. But number 2, best movie of 2019 was Steven Universe the movie. Yes, my second favorite movie of the year was not theatrically released, which does not bother me in the slightest, because this movie was so good. I watched it multiple times after my first viewing, just in the span of a week. And then in the span of 2 weeks, I watched that movie probably 10 times. I watched it constantly. I legit forgot that it premiered that night, and I legit needed to watch it. And I was like, oh, I have like a few minutes to get on TV before I freaked out. This was such a great thing because the fact that Steven Universe got a movie was insane, and it's a little upsetting that Teen Titans Go movie gets theatrically released, but Steven Universe doesn't get theatrically released. I am a little salty, not gonna lie. I'm actually very salty. Very salty. But with that being said, I really enjoyed this film. It's definitely was sitting at my favorite of the year for a while, but then number 1 came around, but this movie was so great, and I cannot wait to own it. I still haven't bought it on DVD because there's no Blu-ray. There's no Blu-ray available. But the thing is, the movie was so great, and I really just can't wait to rewatch it again and again and again and again and again. Because it's a great thing to connect with the series with Steven, Garnet, Amethyst Pearl in this movie format, and seeing pretty much everyone we know from the entire series is in this movie. You see Connie, you see Lars. Like not all of them have a big role, but you see them, and it's like really great to have things to musical, which makes it so much more awesome. Seeing Steven with an actual neck is just insane. And I just legit fell in love with this movie when I watched it for the first time. And it is definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. And I cannot believe Steven Universe got a movie. It's crazy that a lot of my favorite things that I've been part of got movies, which is completely insane. But that's it. Before we get to number 1, I have a few honorable and dishonorable mentions. Actually, I have quite a few because I have to talk about every other movie I saw this year. So buckle in for about a good 5 minutes or something. Now, there are plenty of movies that I saw this year that I would have loved to put on this list. And as you can tell by my face, I'm kind of upset that I can't put them on the list. But I'm also glad about some of these being on the list because some of these I didn't really like. But let's go ahead and get into the honorable mentions and dishonorable mentions. Now, these are in no particular order, but first we're going to start with Wonder Park, which wasn't terrible, but it wasn't nothing amazing. It was fine and passable, but it was all right. Now, Escape Room was the first movie I saw in 2019, and I really, really enjoyed it, but I don't think I enjoyed it enough to actually put it on the list compared to the other movies. It wasn't as big a deal to me as some of the others, but I still really had a lot of fun with this movie. Now, Invader Zim Into the Fortress was not really something that I had a big hype for, but was definitely something I wasn't going to put on the list. I did enjoy it, but I don't have any nostalgic attachment to Invader Zim, but I enjoyed this nonetheless. Pet Sematary was highly disappointing. That's all I have to say. Now, Shazam was really a movie that I was like, when I first saw the movie, I guarantee this is going to be on my top 12, and when I went to go make my top 12, I was like, this is going to be on the list. But then I wasn't able to fit it in, but it was still a really fun movie. Now, Jumanji The Next Level was one of the movies I was talking about when I was talking about the number 2 spot on this list, and I saw this in January of 2020, so I was like, can't really think I should put this on here. but I'm really upset that I didn't see it sooner because I really would have liked to have put this on the list. Dumbo was just awful. The Addams Family was one of my highest anticipated movies of 2019, and I was disappointed, but I didn't hate it. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood was a very interesting movie and was a very emotional movie, and it's just a movie that the world needs right now, and I really enjoyed it. The Lion King. Now, this was a very confusing one for me because I didn't hate it, but I definitely didn't really love it, just because too little was changed, and that's really my main problem with this movie. Medea's Family Funeral was not a bad Medea movie, but it was a bad final Medea movie. The Playmobil movie was disappointing. I was optimistic, hoping it would be good. I went and saw it, and it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but it definitely wasn't a good movie, and I was very disappointed by it. Now, who asked for a sequel to Happy Death Day? Happy Death Day to You wasn't disappointing, but it delved a lot more into comedy than it did horror, and that was a little disappointing. The Prodigy, and really the only reason why I went to go see this movie was to see the trailer for Child's Play on the big screen, because it was supposed to show before this, and it didn't, and the movie was passable, nothing fantastic, and I really didn't like it that much, but it was passable. Detective Pikachu. Now, I'm not a huge Pokemon fan, but I do enjoy the franchise, and this movie is no exception. It was very enjoyable, and I loved the way the Pokemon looked. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was great. I loved it. It just had a few things that I was like, but it was still a pretty darn good film. Dora and the Lost City of Gold was a huge shock. This movie is basically Tomb Raider for kids, and I loved it. And for our final honorable mention is Spies in Disguise, which I really wanted to put this on the list as well because it was surprisingly really, really good. Tom Holland and Will Smith was fantastic in this movie. The animation was great, and the comedy was pretty great. Now that we've gone through all the honorable and dishonorable mentions, let's get to number one. And my number one movie of 2019 is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Are you surprised? I heard a lot of negatives about this movie going into it, so I was worried that we would have a repeat of some of the other Star Wars movies, but there was nothing, except for one thing, nothing I didn't like about this movie. It was so freaking good. It was such a good way to close out the Skywalker saga. It was just so much fun, and there was so much stuff to love about this, and I don't understand most of the criticism this movie has gotten. Yes, maybe the fact that people were saying Palpatine wasn't planned from the beginning, maybe that's true, but that doesn't bother me. This story, all of this was fan-freaking-tastic. I loved it and would watch it multiple times again because it was such a good movie. The CGI was great. Just the fact of figuring out more about Rey in this movie and the reason why Palpatine is here and just all these interesting things that are done with this film just blew my freaking mind with some of the stuff that they did with these characters and what came of these characters and just the stuff that happened in this movie that blew my mind. And I was like, what? And I was surprised to see some characters return that I wasn't expecting to return. There was fan service in this movie. There was so much to learn. And yes, I took down the blanket that was up there, and it's currently daylight when I started working on this video about 2 hours ago. But yes, the movie is so freaking good. And if you haven't gone and see it, I know it's still playing in theaters, so go see it if you haven't seen it yet. It is so good. It's so good to experience this thing on the big screen, and you have to go see it. It was so good, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. Love or hate the new trilogy, this movie was good in my opinion. I haven't even done my review yet. I'm planning on doing it soon. This movie was so good. It was so good, guys. And that brings us to the end of this top 12. Now, this was actually the longest top 12 I've ever done. And I want to try out a new format for these videos, and that's what I wanted to do for this one. And I wanted to mention every movie I saw this year, just because that's like about, what 32-ish video movies, something like that I saw this year. I thought I would just tell all those. And just the movies that I saw this year were really great, guys. I can't wait to see what 2020 has to hold for movies. And guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. And 2020 is going to be a great year for YouTube for us, even though COPPA is a thing, and I'm not going to get into all that. Bye!